Next, we'll use our demonstration program to explore the font dialog box. Just as a quick reminder, you note that you would need to add the font dialog control from the toolbox to the components tray for this to work. As you can see, the default name is Font Dialog 1. So again, just like I did with the color, I will need to interact with the font dialog button, and here again I will write some code. And again, what we initially want to do is to show the font dialog box to the user. To do that, you simply again need to know the name of the font dialog, which by default is Font Dialog 1. Note, you could change the name, but it's really no purpose in doing so. And much like the color dialog box, we simply want to select Show Dialog. And that, just like the color dialog box, will show the font dialog box to the user. Also, just like the color dialog box, unless we write additional code to say take the font that's been selected and apply it, it won't really see any net result. So once again, I'm going to write a comment here that says to apply the font selected to the label's text property. So the contents of the label that I have on the form will now be affected. The label1.font is what I'm changing, is to equal the font dialog 1.font, which simply says whatever the font has been selected by the user from the font dialog box, change the font of label 1. So again, you can see the similarities between the color button and the font button's code. The main difference is simply one is color and one is font. And of course, in the case of the color dialog box, I'm changing the back color, and in the case of the font, I'm changing the font itself. So let's run the program, and this time we'll click on font. Before I do so, make note of the sample text and notice how it's written. So I'll click on the font. Here's my font dialog box. I can choose a font dialog box. I want to choose something that's different than what's already selected, and I'm going to choose bold, and I'm going to make it much bigger. So I'll click OK, and as you can see, that indeed did change the font of the label 1's text property. Now, if you wanted to, you of course can change both the color and the font simultaneously. You may recall from a separate movie that we looked at the color dialog box and we saw how the color was changing the label 1's back color. So here we have both color and font dialog boxes interacting with the same control, in this case label 1. So once again, two steps. First step is to show the font dialog box, and the second step is to apply the font that's been selected to the specific control. Now keep in mind, if I have multiple controls on my form and I want all of them to be affected, I will need additional lines of code here to change label 2 or label 3 or whatever labels or text boxes or whatever it is that I want to change the font of. So you would need a line of code for all that to be equally affected.